News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And a very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Newsline Live. My next guest needs no real introduction. He's the former Director General of the Securities Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka, the SEC, and also later after that he was the Senior Advisor to the Ministry of Finance. He's of course none other than Attorney at Law, Mr. Malik Cader. Very good evening to you, Mr. Cader. Thank you for being on Newsline.
Well, good evening, Faraz. It's always nice to be on Sri Lanka's version of Lavi King Live. So it's a nice program.
Thank you. You're very kind. Now then, Mr. Cader, we've just had an announcement that from midnight today, there will be only essential services on the road. So I dare say we won't have any public transport. So in effect, this is a lockdown.
More than a lockdown for us, I think it's a breakdown of the entire system, right? Where government has failed miserably to provide the basic needs, right, for the people of this country, right? These are things which should have been planned out long time ago. And well, lockdown seems to be a nice word to use, but I would say it's a breakdown.
Obviously, when it's only limited, it's obviously because there's no point beating around the bush. There is a lack, an acute lack of petrol, diesel, kerosene, cooking gas and everything else in between, medicines, milk powder, and the list is really on and on and on. Now, 62%, I'm sure our viewers are as familiar with this figure as I am, because I've said it so many times. 62% of our working population are daily waged. When you lock the country down because you've not been able to plan properly and have your essentials on time like clockwork, then those 62% of the working population are going to be severely impacted, and by and large the average working person has about 5 others. So it's a serious amount. It
is serious for us. I mean, yeah, you're talking about 62%, but we had 6.9 million people of this country who had faith. 6.9 million. Or 6.9 million people of this country who had utmost faith in whom they elected.
Well, I mean, you know, since 1948, the people of Ceylon and then Sri Lanka had always faith in their leaders, whoever they were.
Yeah, but for us now, don't you think that they've been let down?
Well, definitely they have been let down, but you know, we are both talking about what the whole country, the sovereign people of this country knows already. But the people of this country, who are of course supreme, they've elected members of parliament, they've elected a president, and de facto they've also appointed the judges and the police and all sorts of things. So the people are sovereign, but obviously the people have been let down,
severely let down,
and therefore you know, before any election, the government of the day always commissions state intelligence services to do an intelligence test to see how much support or not they have. Well, I'm told, I'm told that last year's, the last time's presidential election, 2018,
yes,
was that state intelligence figure was out by only 0.7% or 48,000 votes.
Oh, I see.
Now, that's pretty accurate.
Right.
In the absence of one of these robust sort of Gallup polls and that kind of thing, I am sure that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa must have inquired from his intelligence people. After all, he is Mr. Intelligence himself, because he was Defense Secretary during the war. All right. So their popularity must have fallen way below 30%.
Now?
Yes.
I think must be more than that. The gut feeling is definitely more than that.
What do you mean more? In the sense
It's lesser than 30%.
yes.
Less than 30%.
Well, which is probably why the people protesting, the silent protesters who were not so silent, because they beat their drums and they probably beat their chests, you know, in anger, in frustration. They're still at it. Over 70 days.
Right.
They're
right.
over 70 days.
You're talking about the people on the streets.
Yes.
For us, what one needs to remember in this whole scenario is all these people who are out there
Yeah.
are self-motivated people.
Well, they're self-motivated because of the troubles.
They don't have anyone, right, who are pushing them, right, from behind. I know of an incident, I think I mentioned this to you. There was a housekeeper who has a 1.5-year-old son, a young boy, right, 1.5-year-old son. He's unable to give milk to this child.
Yes, this is on
And
plain
now the result is that that little child is on plain tea. What do you think the feeling of that father is? What do you think the feeling of that father is?
Well, according to Dr. Rohan Petiagoda, he said that because we are having a nutrition problem now, that if you don't give them the right nutrition, they'll, in terms of height, for example, you know, the first 2 years, from 0 to 2 years, the second birthday, very important nutrition-wise, and it will result in stunted growth, stunted IQ levels, and a whole host of other problems later on in life. So, you know, Sri Lanka forever and a day is postponing the inevitable. It's like the government solution to the SMEs and the hotel industry in during the pandemic. It is probably the only country in the world that didn't part with even a fraction of their GDP in percentage terms to actually help the people. A moratorium is exactly a moratorium.
You have to pay it someday.
You have to pay it someday. That day, by the way, is coming around the corner. It's on
Right.
the 30th of June.
Correct.
So unless it is, you know, it's a bit like the Ides of March and the accountability process.
You have to pay that with the interest.
Of course, of course.
It's
So
only-
it's a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, it has been delayed. The payment has been delayed.
But yet it is the same government who oversaw the global pandemic who spent over 2 months' cost of gas for the entire country, which is about $75 million. They spent that money extra on buying the vaccinations.
Yeah, for us, just a clarification on that. It is not 2 months actually, right? People don't use a gas cylinder for a month. They use it generally in a house for about 2 to 3 months. So we could have saved this country from expenditure for about maybe 4 to 6 months. Right?
The
So
point
that
I'm
would have helped
making-
us. That
yes,
would have helped us
absolutely.
to give free gas.
So 15 million vaccinations.
That's
Bangladesh paid at $10, and you know, smart aleck leaders in this country decided to pay $5 more. Ah, come on, we'll give it $5 more. We've got oil fields all over. We've got oil fields in Medamuruna. We've got oil fields in Tangor. We've got oil fields in Monaragala. We've got oil fields where Umaoya should be. You know, we've got oil, so much of oil that we can just afford to pay some company $5 more. $75 million to a single party, contract awarded to a single party.
We could have given gas to half of Sri Lanka for 4 to 5 months for us with that money.
And think of the political mileage that would have had, but then they don't have the noodles to work that one out. But now then, Malik Cader, tell me, as a finance man, why is it so difficult to refinance state debt?
For us, that's a good question. We have also been trying with some of the international fund managers to see whether there is an appetite in Sri Lanka, right? Before January, there was some kind of an appetite where people would come and make investments. But then there was this big question mark which was there, right, written all over their face about confidence, about do we give money to the right country for the right thing? Are we ensured? Is someone ensuring us that this money will be spent in a manner it should be spent? Or is someone going to put his or her hand into the till? So those are big question marks that were looming, right, with foreign investors. Even now, for us, I can't see anyone coming forward, right, to give us debt at this moment. In the event, there is a change. There is a change in the administration. You will see there'll be loads of countries coming behind Sri Lanka to help them in this debt crisis.
So why aren't they coming out now?
Now they're not coming because confidence has been eroded. Confidence has been eroded totally.
Are you saying that they are interfering in our sovereignty?
Who is interfering?
People outside. The people who have the money, who are not giving us the money.
No, they are not. They are not supposed to just give us the money. They have to make sure that the money is well spent, and they have to make sure that they are going to get this money back someday, right, on a whatever interest percentage they have asked for. This basically is, I think, the underlying problem at this moment of time. There is plenty of money available out there. There are fairy tale stories about things. You yourself interviewed Mark Mobius 2 years ago. He brought in one story, one aspect of it. I mean, that's not the only thing which can happen. It's a kind of a fairy tale story, but then if you properly analyze this whole thing and put wheels, give it nice wheels, right?
Remind the audience, what is it that Mr. Mobius said?
Mr. Mobius said this was just before COVID. He said Europe, right, and the West.
Yeah.
At that time they were flushed with cash, and they could lend. We could borrow at 1% plus or minus, right? And what he said, as a guru, a marketing, international marketing, and an investment guru. I mean,
he's got many millions of dollars under his,
with the Templeton Fund, right, around him. He said, don't go and borrow short 20, 30 years. Borrow 50 years, right? Your debt is 50 billion, borrow 50 billion, right? And then settle all your high cost lending, which is about 8 to 12%, right? You'll have more money with you for consumption. There'll be more money for development. But the underlining that whole thing for us is they wanted people with a lot of integrity, right, to handle these operations. And then even recently, 3 months ago, he made a presentation to a Ivy League university in the United States of America, and he was still very bullish about Sri Lanka. He was very bullish about Sri Lanka. In fact, 2 years ago, I think the government or the administration should have hired him, right, and get him to walk the talk. I'm sure even now, if you do that, right, he will come up with definitely.
Okay, but you know, I was there. Well, obviously, I interviewed him, so I heard it too. And what he said is that you can reschedule, you can go rejig your whole loan book, but that is not possible now. Our ratings is in shambles. Which lender, apart from maybe the IMF, but even they have their conditions, which lender is going to look at us and say, okay, we'll lend you money?
For us, you cannot be so negative on these things, right? You need to have a
forgive
positive.
Me for being negative.
No, I know. You need
I've
to have
just come from Mount Lavinia, and there are queues, thick queues. If it was one car deep, then it was two. Today is three deep. Both sides of the Gore Road, both sides of Marine Drive, is nothing but vehicles. Nothing but vehicles. So forgive me if I'm a bit negative.
Okay, I agree with your being negative, but why I'm trying to tell you is to be positive. To be positive, right, on this whole issue.
What's the impetus? What's the catalyst for me to be positive?
Yeah, the impetus is that we need to have a change.
Where?
Change of administration right from the top.
So what will you say? Let's say it straight out front. Let's call it straight. What you're saying, Malik Cader, is that you're saying that the president must go home.
President and the entire administration will have to go.
You mean the whole party?
Yeah.
What you're saying in short is we need new elections.
We need a new election or a new administration to come and take this over, right? There has to be new thinking. For us, you cannot ask for anything more which is bad, because what is bad has happened.
It's happened. This country is led and ruled by a set of Modias. So says the viewer. We'll see you on the other side of this break when we take a quick look at this evening's headlines from the News First Primetime News team. See you on the other side.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali. Token system to sell fuel. Trade unions round up energy minister. Public opposition against deputy speaker. Current solution to the country's problems.
මම ඔබතුමාලට පැහැදිලිව කියනවා ගෑස් ප්‍රශ්න සම්බන්ධයෙන් ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඉදිරියට එන්නේ නැහැ මාස 6කටවත්.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And welcome back to Newsline Live. I'm in conversation with Mr. Malik Cader, attorney at law, former Director General of the Securities Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka and former senior advisor to the Ministry of Finance. Now, we were talking about what Mark Mobius said, but that scenario of refinancing the whole loan book and going for a cheaper one over 50 years, today it sounds like a dream.
It is a dream. It is in fact a dream. Looking at it, it's a fairy tale story. But then for us, you need to look at these things as well. There are dreams which need to materialize, right? So it's not easy as said, right? We need to go to experts like that and get more assistance, because it was only 2 months ago, after the pandemic, he made this presentation to this Ivy League university. Right, so he's still bullish. He was very bullish.
But what, Mr. Cader, in your observation of the growth situation that we have in our country as you speak, what can be done immediately? How do we get the much needed dollars? You know, the Prime Minister of this country admitted on TV to some channel or other, he said, some days I sit here looking for 20, 40, 60 million dollars. Really? This is not, I mean, I think some corporates will have more than that in their bank account.
For us, the immediate immediate need, I think we have to get our exports, money, dollars coming into this country. We need to work on those things. One of the things which we can get now for the moment is tourism, which can bring, I don't know, even...
But long-haul flights have been told not to come.
Yeah, so those are the things, those are the things we need to work on. $300 to $400 we can get in. Then we're looking, I saw some figures on exports which is very encouraging, right? We're looking at about $900 million which have come within the last 5 years. We have the remittance, right? And these things will have to be managed properly. For us, you're looking at your purse, you must be getting about $500 million a month flowing into this country, and that has to be managed properly. There can also be expenditure on that, but this is enough money for us to start.
We are all saying this regime must go, but since they are not going, how can we force it to happen? Send your questions in by SMS or WhatsApp 0772 300 305. What can we do? They're not going, so what do we do?
For us, if they're not going, it's bad luck for Sri Lanka.
Can't we go to the Supreme Court and say, dear lordships, but you know, we're not happy with this fellow. We voted him and we had various things in our mind. They assured us, and none of this was promised in the manifesto. Had it been, we wouldn't have voted. What can we do? Can we go to the Supreme Court?
No, I don't think Supreme Court will or can have the power to overthrow the president unless there is an impeachment which is being brought from Parliament, and that is going to be a very long drawn process. And when that happens, right, and when you look at the end of that, right, there'll be much more calamities than this in this country. For us, there'll be much more calamities than this in this country. One of the things for us, I mean, any man, right, or anyone for that reason, if he cannot deliver, what does he do? Is he going to suppress his family? Is he going to suppress the people who was with him?
Do you think that the Prime Minister shouldn't have taken up the gauntlet?
I also have a very strong feeling. I was at one time very happy when the Prime Minister took over this, that he could produce something, don't you know, unusual.
But now
he
can't. It's over a month now.
No, not that he can't, not that he is incapable, or not that anyone else. The problem for us is, for money to flow into this country, we need to see something new. It is then and only then, even for the Prime Minister. Right? If there was a new administration, I'm sure and I'm convinced, right, he would be in a position to get more money coming into this country. At least if we see that the 21st Amendment, right, is on its way, proceeding in the right direction, where the abolition of the executive presidency, right, where the powers of the presidency would get pruned. But now what is happening is, the current draft which is there before Parliament, all this will happen for the new president. The current president will still enjoy all the powers he's having, right, until the end of his term.
But Mr. Cader, you know, tonight after midnight, there'll be nothing other than essential services.
I know, it'll be like curfew. It'll be another curfew. You'll have to be at home. Right? I don't know whether people are going to tolerate this.
So, but imagine all those farmers up in, let's say, Norelia. They need to send their produce in the trucks to come down to Colombo, to the bigger markets, to Dambula. What's going to happen?
Those will have to be declared as essential services if people have to basically have their food on the table. Right? So some adjustments will have to be done.
Why can't the president declare this, or has he already done it? Because he's issued so many gazettes, they're difficult to keep in touch. But why can't he declare this whole country as that what's happening to us now as a national disaster?
Well, I don't know whether he would want to do that, because
why? If it's the fact, he calls a spade a spade. When people went to court in defense of the Sunday Leader and their editorial, they all of them described all the lawyers that turned up at court, there were several of them, as traitors. So if you can say that up front and open, why can't you say this now? What's so different? But you only have one character after all.
Yeah, but now I think things have toned down. I see that things have toned down.
Well, are they mellow in their old age? Really?
Right. That perhaps has happened at this moment of time. You don't see them.
Perhaps they can be mellow in retirement. We need a whole set of new leaders, if according to what you're saying. So, are you saying that if we had a change of leaders and so on, a new mandate and all that, are you saying that countries who've been sort of looking at us and saying, yes, okay, and then they go off, you know, the Middle Eastern countries, for example?
For us, what we have to remember is this is a beautiful country, right? This is a country that is full of resources, right? Look at the beaches, look at the roads for us, right? Recently, I went to a country within the region, right? And I go to a very narrow lane down Nugegoda. I could see paradise, right? Even in the outskirts of Sri Lanka. You come from the airport, right? It's beautiful, right? You go to what is called the Colombo 7 in some of those countries, you will see rubbish, right? So are we so unfortunate? This country has still a lot to offer to the younger generation.
The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation says they will only issue diesel and petrol for essential services with effect from midnight on Monday the 27th, which is today.
Monday is today, yes.
All right. These services will include ports, airports, health, food distribution, well said, agriculture. So says the world according to Bandula Gunawardena, Minister. All other sectors must prepare for work from home program, said the minister, urging that the public must support to limit the consumption of fuel. Oh, that's fine. But if you have no power, the internet probably won't work. Yeah. The minister said only essential services will be allowed to function until the 10th of July. Well, that's probably not well written. But anyway, what the minister said is that only essential services will be allowed to function until the 10th of July.
So there's no transport for us. So there'll be no buses on the road. Is that what we learn from that?
Well, that's how it is.
I think there is much more clarification that is needed on this announcement.
Well, because he says these services shall include ports, airports, health, food distribution, agriculture. So we are basically in a lockdown.
It's a lockdown. It's a curfew.
Why can't the IMF, why are they doing so much talking? Why can't they let us have some money and put an end to the people's misery? These blessed queues and queues. We're tired of seeing queues in our news.
For us, the question there again, I'll come back to what I said at the beginning. You need to have confidence to give money. That confidence, I gather, has eroded. So we need to have, that's what I said, we need to have, they say, a system change, right? There are several interpretations to the system change, but we need to have some kind of a change where there will be confidence, right, of the international community to come back to Sri Lanka.
There's an interesting message. It's like an analysis, I suppose. I read it very quickly. So here's the unedited version, okay? Here we go. SP, Sajid Premadasa probably, SP was never in the picture. Anyone who thought RW was going to be the savior lived in cloud cuckoo land. They wanted to save their skins. He was successfully not only done that, but got embroiled in another scam. This time buying fuel at a high rate. So this is people's opinion about the Prime Minister. Look, there's no point blaming this one and that one.
So for us,
is there anything that we can do, bang, that we get money
so
tomorrow?
For us, this kind of information will be going all over social media, right? And then everyone is going to pick up information like that. So this will add to that issue I mentioned about eroding confidence.
So there's a confidence deficit.
So you need to basically give confidence to the international community, even to the IMF, and even to the other countries who are the friendly countries who will look at Sri Lanka.
Somebody is suggesting since President Rajapaksa has admitted that that he made mistakes and so on, and this country is going through this crisis, somebody is asking, isn't this a sufficient admission for the Bar Association of Sri Lanka to initiate a public writ from the Supreme Court to remove the President from the office of President? Or does our Constitution not allow that?
Well, that's something the legal eagles will have to look at. I'll not be able to give an interpretation on that on the spur of the moment.
No.
I think you're right. The legal eagles will have to look at. The Bar Association, yes, can take a cue from that and see whether justice can be done for the people of this country.
As citizen Cader from Sri Lanka, do you firmly believe that your president, mine, theirs, should resign forthwith?
I think he has to resign for just only one reason.
Which is?
That he has failed to protect the masses. If these queues are going to be, the queues are a result of it, right? Food is a result of it. the cost of living is